U.S. President Donald Trump's address to the joint sitting of Congress on Tuesday night clocked in at more than 1 hour and 40 minutes, going down as the longest ever address to the Assembly. He spoke on everything from the future of the Ukraine war to migration, tariffs, and the chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan under former President Joe Biden. Of course, he also touched on his MAGA themes.
Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. I withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. And I also withdrew from the anti-American UN Human Rights Council. Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter. April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and Border Patrol to repel the invasion of our country. And what a job they've done. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded, ever. 3.5 years ago, ISIS terrorists killed 13 American service members and countless others in the Abbey Gate bombing during the disastrous and incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that we have just apprehended the top terrorist responsible for that atrocity, and he is right now on his way here to face the swift sword of American justice.
All right, lots to talk about. We are now being joined by Joanna LeBlanc, political analyst, national security law analyst, and foreign relations expert from Washington, D.C. Joanna, welcome back to WION. Thank you so much for joining us. How close are we to a ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, considering everything President Trump said during that speech last night?
Well, I think we're getting pretty close based on what Mr. Trump said. And I think it's a positive in the right direction. It's a positive step in the right direction. But I think that ultimately, if both parties are willing to come to the table, I think it will be in the best interest of not just the United States, but also Russia, Ukraine, and the entire region as a whole. As you know, the United States has spent over $100 billion in this conflict. And during Mr. Trump's campaign, he committed to the American people that he would end this conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
Let's talk about tariffs. That's an issue that President Trump focused on for quite some time during his speech last night. And it appeared that when it comes to the economy and the tariffs, he was directly talking to people like American farmers, those who work in the auto industry. So a lot of analysts are saying when tariffs might be likely to disturb the economic equation, so to say, with other countries. How is it going to impact Americans? Is it going to impact Americans, notably consumers? And do you think reciprocal tariffs are good?
No, absolutely. There is no denying that tariffs will impact American consumers, because the reality is that countries don't pay tariffs, right? When businesses are importing or exporting goods into a country, whatever tariffs that they have to pay, it is passed on to the consumer. Now, there are some companies that may be big enough where they can, take on some of that financial responsibility. But for most companies, it will have to be passed on to the consumer. So we're talking about things like cars and eggs and produce and beer. Americans will have to pay significantly more for it. And I think that it was a missed opportunity yesterday during the president's address that he did not go deeper into the economy. Instead, he just indicated that there will be some hard times and some tough times ahead. But I think that Mr. Trump voted on an economy that he was going to bring back stronger than ever before. So I don't think those tariffs do us any good. You look at countries like Canada and Mexico, who have complied with what Mr. Trump asked for. For example, with Mexico, Mr. Trump asked for additional troops at the border to help secure the border. Mexico complied with that. Mr. Trump asked Canada, we want support with the immigration crisis coming from Canada, and also with the fentanyl crisis. They've provided support for that. And Canadian government is saying that perhaps Mr. Trump's real intent is truly to annex Canada, to make Canada the 51st state of the United States. But there is no doubt that tariffs will certainly have an impact on how much Americans pay at the grocery store and beyond.
And how valid is the criticism that President Trump's new foreign policy doctrine will ultimately distance traditional U.S. allies? Do you think that's overstated?
Well, I think there's room for some concerns, right? Obviously, Mr. Trump has an American first foreign policy approach, meaning that whatever position that the United States takes, or whatever money that the United States spend on other countries, it must benefit the American people. However, in foreign policy, you can't run a country like you run a company to a certain extent. For example, with USAID, I am certain there are probably waste that went on in USAID. But institutions like USAID have been used as a way to promote soft power in countries around the world, right? And as a way to influence policies, but most importantly, as a way to employ Americans, right? So I think that when you remove America from organizations like USAID, which no longer exist as of today, I don't think it really supports American foreign policy. While I think that there could have been some changes, but I think that there should have been sufficient time provided to America's partners and allies to say, hey, in about 60 days or a year, we're going to cut this program. So that way countries will have the opportunity to have their finances in order and to find other financial means to address issues like HIV and AIDS, which are some of the programs that USAID was funding all across the world. But in terms of things like tariffs, for example, I think that Mr. Trump used tariff as a way to negotiate with other nations to bring them to the table to get better deals for the American people, for the American economy. Now, some could argue that it may not be the best approach because some countries see it as a bully tactic. So you look at a country like Canada, for example. Canada said, I cannot believe our ally is doing this to us. So I think that the way that Mr. Trump is handling foreign policy, while it may work domestically to his base, but it creates a level of unpredictability by his allies and some of America's friends around the world.
Thank you so much, Johanna LeBlanc, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Of course, we are expected to hear some announcement regarding those tariffs, at least with Canada and possibly Mexico later today. We'll see if that happens. It's always great talking to you.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.